So, last night's Outlander actually made me cry. And believe me, it rarely ever does that, but I was actually surprised that it actually got to me. So before I get to that, let me introduce the episode of Outlander, which was called All Debts Paid. And it was the third episode in the third season. And it was basically, we see more of Claire and Frank's life with Brianna and how their relationship is kind of just going nowhere, really. And we also see in the past, we see Jamie, who is at, I believe it's called Ardsmuir Prison, if I'm saying that right. And it's the place where he meets Lord John Grey, I believe that's his name. I haven't read the book, so I don't really know all the characters yet, but that was his character where they met before the Battle of Culloden and Jamie spared his life. And it was his brother who later saw Jamie after the Battle of Culloden and spared his life at that moment. But now that the actual John Grey is in Jamie's life again, it's interesting to see how they work with each other and how different they are after all these years. So let me start with Jamie's story because I want to talk about Claire and Frank's story last. So, like I said, Jamie was in the prison, and that's where he meets Lord John Grey. And they actually have a really interesting relationship. Jamie's basically become the spokesperson for the prisoners there. They really respect him and they see him as a leader. And so basically anything that Lord John Grey feels like he needs to deal with, he goes to Jamie, he calls him in. And I don't remember if he doesn't recognize him. I can't tell you guys that. But we kind of see their dynamic throughout the episode of how they work together, and at one point Jamie tries to escape because they find this man who Jamie later speaks to, and the man speaks of a white woman or a white witch, and it's basically kind of like La Dame Blanche, which is what Claire's name was in France. So Jamie thinks that she's possibly there, but when he goes to find her, he doesn't. And he explains later to Lord John Grey that that's partly why he tried to escape. He actually opens up to him, which is something you wouldn't think he would do. And he eventually is able to say Claire's name. He's able to speak of her. And just imagine, it's all these years since he's seen her. He spent 6 years living in a cave and not talking much to people. So just imagine how much it must have meant to him to actually confide in a British officer, which is something we've never seen him do. Especially after Jonathan Randall, that really, like, you even see the trauma that Jonathan Randall left, because at one point John Grey touches Jamie's hand and Jamie is he just does not want that. So still the fact that he opens up to him, and even Lord John Grey opens up and explains that he lost a friend at Culloden, and they kind of find a connection through it. So I really thought their dynamic was very interesting, and eventually the prisoners are being taken to the colonies in America, but Lord John Grey separates Jamie from them and he takes him to Hellwater, which is I don't exactly remember, it's some kind of somebody's house. He's basically going to serve the rest of his years as a servant or something like that. And that was Lord John Grey's way of saving Jamie from being a prisoner any longer. So it'll be interesting to see if he returns. Like I said, I don't read the book, so I'm not sure if he does or not. He said he's going to, but I'm not positive. So now before I get to Claire and Frank, we were wondering if Murtaugh made it through Culloden. At one point it seemed like we saw a dead body that looked like his, but he actually survived. I actually didn't recognize him at first because it's been years and he's aged. Like, some of his hair was white and gray. So to see that he actually lived, that was a change from the books. I read that was a big change because he was supposed to die at Culloden originally, but they decided to keep his character, and I really like that choice. So I think we're going to see more of him. He's heading to the colonies with the other prisoners. So who knows? Jamie and Claire will run into him someday, hopefully. I don't know. That is up for debate. So now on to Claire and Frank. So we knew that in the last episode their marriage just wasn't really gonna be what they were hoping for. They could still talk to each other and make jokes, but they separated their beds and they just weren't comfortable being close to each other anymore, because Frank knew that Claire was still thinking of Jamie, and it still affects them even years later. We're in the 50s at one point, and we learn that Frank's actually seeing somebody because they agreed that they can see other people. And I think we know Claire's obviously not going to do that because she's very faithful to Jamie. Even if she tried to make things work with Frank again, she still can't think of anybody but him. But Frank, he's actually sort of moved on. He's seen a woman, and Claire's understanding at first, but it does bother her. And at one point at Claire's graduation party at the house, she actually graduates from medical school. So the woman actually shows up at the house because Frank thought that they were going to leave sooner rather than later, and it just wasn't a pretty sight, unfortunately. So Claire confronts Frank about it, and she's clearly very upset, not just because he invited her over, but because it was her graduation day and he knew how much it meant to her. And I thought it actually was kind of weird that Frank invited the woman over on Claire's graduation day. I thought that was very disrespectful, but their relationship's complicated. So that's one of their big fights in the 50s we see. And then we jump forward again into the 60s, and they're even more distant than they were. Frank is still seeing the same woman, and he actually plans to go back to England because he has a position at Cambridge, and he wants to take Brianna with him, but he doesn't want to take Claire. In other words, he wants a divorce. Now that Brianna's 18 years old, he feels that it's time that he can separate from Claire. So they have a fight about it, and Claire thinks that Frank's just been waiting this whole time to do this, and she's just upset because I think what she's most upset about is the fact that he's going to take Brianna away from her. And I actually can understand her anger towards it. Brianna is more her child than Frank's, especially because Frank isn't the biological father. So that's what really sets Claire off, and they have a huge fight, and it's not going to end well between them. Their relationship's just completely dead. So eventually Claire is at work. She's performing surgery, and at one point, her partner, Joe, who we met in the last episode, he tells her that Frank was in a car accident, and he died. That actually shocked me. I somehow thought Frank died, because in the end of season 2, we only hear Claire explain that her husband was no longer alive, and we didn't get the details exactly of how he went, unless I'm not remembering, but I'm pretty sure we didn't hear that it was a car accident. I'd have to watch again, but still, just to see it now, instead of just hear it. There's a difference between when you hear it and when you see it. To see Frank lying on the gurney, lifeless, and to see Claire run to him, and her reaction when she sees him, it's just, that really actually got to me. And she even tells him that if he can still hear her, that she did love him, and that he was her first love. And that's where the tears came in. It was a lot sadder than I thought it was going to be. Because if you guys watch the show, you know that the actor who plays Frank, Tobias Menzies, I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right, but he also plays Jonathan Randall, and that character died earlier in the season, in the first episode. And now his other character, Frank, is dead. So he's died twice in the one season. That was actually interesting. I didn't think it was going to happen this soon. I thought they were going to have at least another episode or two of Frank. I guess they just wanted to give us more, just a glimpse of what their life was like together. But his death really affected me a lot more than I thought it was going to. And especially when you think back to the very first season, the very first episode, when you see Frank and Claire together, they're so in love, and even after she goes back in time through the stones, her goal is to get back to Frank. That is her number one goal throughout the first half of the season. And she's so heartbroken when she can't get there, and she fights so hard to get back to him. And then when she finally does get back, it's too late. Those feelings are gone. And it's just so sad to see where the relationship went, because they really did care about each other. I've said that Frank was her first love and Jamie is her true love. And unfortunately, when you find your true love, the first love, it just kind of goes away. So it was just so heartbreaking to see the evolution of their relationship. It went in a very sad direction. So yeah, that was heartbreaking. At least we learned Myrtle lived, but unfortunately Frank is gone. And I mean, there were times when I didn't agree with his character. He's no Jamie. No. He didn't believe Claire like Jamie did. But he still did care about her. He loved her. And I actually wondered what their life would have been like if she hadn't met Jamie and gone into the past. I wonder if their relationship would have made it or not, but it might have. It's hard to know, but it was just so sad. So now we're getting into the interesting part of the season, where it looks like we're going to be back in 1968, and we're going to see Claire, Brianna, and Roger looking to find where Jamie ended up 20 years later. And I think we're going to see Jamie's life at Hellwater and Looks like he runs into some trouble there. When don't you in the past? So yeah, it's going to be an exciting episode, and we're getting even closer to Jamie and Claire reuniting. That is going to be a big episode. I think I heard it's supposed to be 90 minutes, like the season 2 finale was. So that'll be exciting. Alright guys, I'm going to leave it here, and I will see you for episode 4. Have a nice day. Bye.